Hello, you're watching Hornbill TV's newsroom. Human and animal conflict has been an age-old conflict that has continuously left the administration scratching their heads with a limbo. That is to protect biodiversity and also to protect human life. But due to the thin line, many lives are lost too in trying to strike a balance. When it comes to India, a report from the Hindu stated that India has the largest number of wild Asian elephants, estimated to be around 30,000. Loss of their traditional foraging environments has been bringing wild elephants closer to human habitations, sparking these conflicts. In this regard, Nagaland too has its fair share of this conflict, where over the past few years too, Hornbill TV has reported on this concerning conflict where numerous lives have been lost in Nagaland in particular. Wokha, Newland and Mookchung and in Tangke and fringe areas of the Dimapur district are seeing an increase in this human-animal conflict, especially with wild elephants entering farmlands. In today's newsroom, we will try and gauge the issue in a light that could bring more seriousness into the matter, for which we have with us our associate editor, Alngoli, joining me. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining me on this particular newsroom where we will look at the human-animal conflict, and especially for the state of Nagaland, we will look at the problem of wild elephants. Well, to begin with, sir, what is your point of view, or rather what is your own take regarding this problem, since you also belong from a district where you, I'm sure, have been witnessing this conflict between elephants and farmers almost annually? And do you believe that these conflicts, the incidents of these conflicts, are only increasing with time?
Yeah, Akivi, definitely. When I was growing up in Wokha, we used to hear a lot of stories about herds of elephants roaming in the lower plains of Wokha district. So that will be towards the Doyang hydroelectric project area now. So we used to hear a lot of stories, and over the years the stories have transformed from the idyllic, romantic expressions of rural life about animals foraging somewhere far from the settlements into something much more unpleasant and dangerous. So I remember, I think it was in 2020 or 2019 somewhere, I went to the village and my cousins told me that there were several herds of elephants, or I think it was a herd of elephant that was camping in our field on our land. And I have never encountered a story about elephant being in existence that close to humans, Sakivi.
Yes.
So the stories are changing. The incidents of attacks by elephants on people are growing every year in Maharashtra. One of the few places in India that you would normally not expect something in the nature of elephants attacking people. Even in Maharashtra in 2021, 85 people were killed by elephants.
Yes.
2021. And then in 2022, 105 people were killed. So there's a jump. Yes. So according to the data we have been seeing, I think so far in India, even in 2023, about 2,853, somewhere in that region, people have been killed, and it's increasing every year.
Yes.
So I do not think that we need to have a romantic view of the situation here, because the situation is such that the realities, what the stories of the realities are telling us, that there is nothing that points only to the animals if we are going to play the blame game.
Yes.
So it's both sides, in the sense that I'm not saying that animals are capable of taking decisions, yes, but I'm saying that humans, we have destroyed a lot of habitats, as you have just pointed out now.
Yes.
And for places like Nagaland, where the community is still engaged in pastoral farming practices, jam cultivation for instance,
yes,
you are clearing acres and hectares and kilometers of pure jungles so that you can plant rice, so you can plant vegetables. And developmental works are destroying a lot of their habitat. So where do the animals go?
Yes.
They are searching. They are not like, oh, there are a lot of people out there in Wokha district, let's go and attack them. No. They are looking for food, a place to sleep. So I think this is a problem that demands not just a government policy intervention. We need much more than that. We need policy intervention that will include the community, conservation efforts, and we have to talk about land ownership rights in this case, because if there is any intervention policy that comes from the government, or if there are conservation efforts that have to come from the community, then it is certainly going to touch a lot of land rights issues. And when we touch land right issues, we are going to come to eventually talk about Article 371 about cultural practices of the Nagas. You have no right to create conservation areas in our land. So you're infringing on our rights. We have the right to kill animals because they're killing humans. So there will be a lot of complex networks of complex policy decisions that the government has to make, and a lot of lobbying at a community level for us to be able to arrive at a certain solution.
All right, so you just mentioned a very important factor where you said that the community that is facing this issue or this conflict should be involved as to how to control such conflicts. Regarding Nagaland especially, so even though we have not been able to go to ground to cover this particular conflict, we have had conversations with villagers who actually don't blame the animal for what it's doing. Basically, it does not intend to kill, but it comes for foraging. But at the same time, the hard work of the farmers are all being crushed because the elephants trample on the fields, which destroys the field. Well, in this regard, so don't you think for the farmers, for this conflict, don't you think the only person or rather the victim would just look at the government and not any other agency with regard to this particular human and animal conflict? And do you feel that this justification, or rather to look at the government when such conflicts arise, do you think that that is justified as a reason?
No, definitely not. I am not saying that because the animals have the capability to take decisions in regard to what they do and what they don't, and how they encroach on people's land, or saying, oh, these are human settlements, so we're going to go in and attack and eat their cabbages. No. My point is, if we are able to work on some kind of a solution that would accommodate the interests of humans and the animals, then, like I said, there has to be policy interventions that addresses the conflict not through the eyes of the humans alone. It has to also come through the eyes of the animals, so to speak, in the sense that we cannot blame the animals for what they are doing. We cannot. Because like I said, they're only foraging. They're looking for food, a place to sleep. They're looking for nutrition for their young. So we cannot blame them. And we also, the humans, cannot take our anger upon them or look at the government doing nothing, because we feel that the animals are not sentient beings that can take decision in this regard. So here the approach would be not to justify who is right or who is wrong, Akivi. The approach here would have to be something that is extremely practical. And that is why I said community involvement. Because when we talk of policy, we are practically talking about spirit of words, spirit of visions, and spirit of goals. But when we talk of involvement, we are talking about solution at the practical level. Where are the elephants intruding? Which are the areas? How many of them are there? Which village? How large is the land of the village? Is there any way we can create a conservation spot that we can wall it off and the elephants can roam as they can without affecting the livelihood, the farms of the community or the villagers. And if there is some kind of an area like that, who is going to oversee that? Who is going to take care of the infrastructure? And how are we going to ensure this infrastructure will definitely protect the interests of the villagers in terms of agriculture, their crops? So these are a lot of practical aspects of the solution that we need to work on it, and it cannot just come from a place of justification about who is right and wrong.
Right.
When I went to the village, my cousins told me that we have a very large land in our village, Akive. So my cousins, they farm cabbages, potatoes, tomatoes. So it seems when we were there, the herd was not just passing through, it was camping in our land, and the elephants had trampled everything, and those that were not trampled were eaten. So for that particular harvest season, my cousins had nothing to harvest. They had lost everything. But what can we do? They're animals. So what he told me was, I think you media people should also speak on our behalf, or if you can, why don't you visit us? We'll take care of your lodging, your transportation, so that you can take this problem to the government, so we can work together for a solution. So there's no justification about who is right or wrong here, okay? It is only about the willingness to work together to come at a solution of some sort. Even if it's not permanent, at least some kind of a stopgap arrangement so that it will somehow lead to a more permanent and feasible solution, okay?
All right, now sir, now coming back to the general topic of the human-elephant conflict, well, the Northeast is endowed and blessed with a huge forest cover, and this particular issue, Hornbill TV has been continuously or consistently reporting about this conflict. So this news comes from the states like Tripura, it comes from a joining state like Assam, and we've got several other northeastern states facing the same problem. On this behalf, even the forest department, the forest officers, the rangers, when you take a look at the issue that is taking place in Tripura, the rangers have specifically installed GPS to track the movement of the herds so that it can create a buffer zone before entering cultivated land. When you take the case of Assam, in Kaziranga, there are corridors that are protected for the forest. There are equipments there that track the movements of the elephants.
Right.
In this regard, sir, do you believe that since the issue is almost generally the same, which is the human-elephant conflict, there should be more synchronization between the northeastern states, especially the forest rangers and the departments that are facing such issues, so that they can all come together and work out a solution that could also bring, could at least be some sort of a lasting solution to this issue?
That's a good question. Yes, I am surprised that you mentioned synchronization, because, okay, have you ever, Akive, has anyone ever told you that most of the human and elephant conflict are all related to purportedly elephants that come from Assam?
Yes.
It seems like most of the time the elephants are always elephants from Assam. You go to Mochong, you go to Mon district, you go to Woka in the border areas, you go to Indisen, you go to Burlingri areas. And it seems apparently all these elephants are elephants that migrate from toward Assam.
Yes.
So don't you find it interesting that Assam is one of the fastest developing urban areas in India, not Northeast, in India.
Yes.
So I think there might be some kind of a correlation between the migration or the movement of the elephants from developed areas to places where they can actually have some kind of food security in that sense. We are less developed than Assam, which means we have more forest cover in that sense, at least in the border areas. So this is not just an issue of Nagaland or Wokha or Moshong or Mon district. It is, as you said, I think a solution that will demand the involvement of all the stakeholding states and the stakeholding communities. So we have people in Kaziranga who use technology to create a network of systems that will also warn communities when elephants are on the move. So that is one of the measures. If you warn the communities in advance, then I think there is a higher level of safety. And second, again, for instance, we work together with Assam to be able to map out the migration zones or the nesting zones of the elephants, where we will need infrastructure for each. Because today it will be, the herd of elephants will be in Nagaland. Tomorrow it might go back to Assam, which means whatever consequences the elephants or the animals have on that ecosystem there, it is going to have an effect on each of the state that every time the herds travel to and forth. So we need definitely synchronization of our activities at a policy level and at a community level. And we also need to share technology also. We have to share tech knowledge with each other, how GPS is there, we have trackers and monitoring systems, we have data controllers, we can map out how many elephants are there in the certain areas. So that's also another thing that we can work together on. And secondly, especially in the border areas, in places like Assam and Nagaland, there are disputed belts there. So there have been observations in the past, if one day maybe the elephants might also, their foraging in disputed lands and causing damage in disputed lands would also lead to tensions between communities from two different states. So this is not just an agricultural or pastoral issue, it is also, it could potentially be also a political issue. So definitely our state government, if we are going to go in with some kind of a policy decision to address this issue for people affected by elephants, then I think it is also behove on us to talk to the Assam authorities so that we can work at a solution that serves both the sides and both the communities.
All right. Regarding the human-elephant conflict and also the innovative measures, if you take the case of this particular conflict in the South India, especially where there are huge forest covers in Tamil Nadu, in Andhra Pradesh, in Karnataka. Well, sir, in those areas, these wild tuskers during the must time where the animal is on heat and it's got large hormones, it seems during that time the elephant is the most agitated, and that is the time the wild elephant is the most dangerous. Also, what the forest department of the southern states are doing is now they are training elephant handlers in which they capture wild elephants and train them and use these trained elephants to go capture rogue elephants. So do you believe that with such innovative measures, do you think that it also kind of creates some kind of an employment opportunity for those people residing in those villages that are affected by this conflict? And do you believe that adapting such measures, giving such training, having workshops for such issues could also mitigate the factor, and so that the blame goes less to the government and the community also has more participation into dealing with this problem?
Yeah, definitely. I think the training capital of states such as Tamil Nadu and Kerala is much higher than us. And because they have been experienced in dealing with this problem a little much more longer than Nagaland or Assam has been, or at least Nagaland or Arunachal Pradesh has been. So the knowledge capital for this for the governments of Tamil Nadu, for example, or Karnataka or Kerala, is much higher. So I think there will be much more advanced, which means that for us, in order for us to start to capitalize on such kind of knowledge or training capabilities for us to handle the problem of human and animal conflict, then I think we have to start now. It is not like we have to suddenly jump from class 1 to BA1. It doesn't happen like that. Kerala and Tamil Nadu have been dealing with this problem for ages, centuries, and somehow over the years they have developed that particular support system for them to be able to deal with a conflict. It could be in terms of IEC, Information and Promotional Capital. It could be in terms of training of community members. It could be in terms of economic livelihood, that is security to the farmers or people who are affected by the human-animal conflicts, particular to elephants. But for us, though, I think that is too advanced a stage for us to talk at this time, because right now I do not believe that we even have a proper data system where we can actually say, oh, this population or this many of elephants are there in Moshong or Mon or Kohima. We don't know how many times they pass through a village or an area, how many times they migrate in a year. We don't know their demographic also. So forget about training elephants to be able to capture rock elephants. We don't even have some of the basic tracking data in regard to elephants. So like I said, all these things will work itself together if we just make a start somewhere at a policy level, take the first step, and then slowly as the problems unravel themselves, then we will be able to have the opportunity to address each and every one of them step by step.
All right, so to end it, I want to bring back one topic that you had mentioned earlier in one of your replies, which you had stated that Assam is one of the fastest developing cities in India. Now, in this regard, sir, where the rest of the Northeast are still on that developing slope, while Assam is already on another level, do you believe that because of development and the factor that now anyone talks about is development, do you feel that we are being a little too greedy, humans are being a little too greedy in also giving a little space to animals, which is why such conflict and rather the attacks on humans by animals? Do you believe that this is also another factor, that we want more development but taking other space?
Definitely look at our roads, and I am not someone who is against development. I say bring all the development we can get our hands on, but I think there is something also, especially in the industry, there is a term called responsible development. So this is a sort of a development that takes into account not just the needs of a particular citizen or a society or a state. It takes into account all the complex networks of people, animals, environments, and especially its future impact. It is very interesting. Yesterday I was reading an old report that I did in the Morong Express, where Nagaland was one of the most funded, I think it was way back 2012. This is not a new data, but 2012. So I was going through my old reports. Nagaland during the time was one of the most and highest funded states in Northeast India, along with Assam and Haryana, I think. But according to Projects India, which tracks all developmental aspects of a state and their progress within the development realm, Nagaland was one of the lowest in terms of development, in terms of road and infrastructure, power facilities, water, basic public amenities. So we were one of the lowest, while we had funding to about 23 to 25%. Our performance level was about 0.3% AKV. So here we need to define development in terms of the future utilities, not the present utility, which means that we have to keep in mind that if we're going to build roads, let's keep the trees at least for the birds, I mean, at the microscopic level. So if we're going to build a road over this, let's think about the animals, the birds that live on the trees here, so don't cut them down. that's development, that is responsible development. So we are not just greedy, and amid our being greedy, we are also irresponsible. And when we talk of the animal and human conflict, we always see the animals as the perpetrators, the villains in this case, and we are the victims. But I think generally, I think we are the villains in this case, and they are the victims. Yes. Because these animals, they cannot make decisions, but us, we can make decisions in the sense that we have control over the resources to be able to come up with a solution that will also positively impact the animals. So development here in this regard should not be seen in the way of something that benefits only the human.
Yes.
It should be seen in the benefit or the potential benefit of the animals that we live with together.
All right, so thank you so much for joining me on this morning's newsroom to speak more on the human and elephant conflict that currently is a rising concern in Nagaland. Thank you so much. Well, that was our associate editor Alnguli, who just joined me on this newsroom to speak about the rising conflict of the human elephants, and which over the past few years, Nagaland has also seen a sharp increase in incidents such as these. Well, Hornbill TV has been reporting on this issue, and unfortunately, Hornbill TV had reported about where a couple had been trampled by a herd of elephants in the Indisen area that is adjoining Assam and the Dimapur border. And we've also been consistently hearing about wild herd of elephants entering districts like Wokha, Mokchung and Newland. Well, our associate editor said if there is more synchronization between all the northeastern states and all the stakeholder states and the stakeholder communities, well, I think there could be some sort of solution that could be found to tackle this issue, maybe not for a lasting time, but maybe for a particular time in which in that particular time there could be more measures that could be found or could be shared among each state facing this problem to tackle this issue. Well, the government and the MLAs of these respective districts have also put forth this problem in the House, or rather the Nagaland Legislative Assembly, and the Forest Department too. The minister in his reply had responded by saying that the department is looking into the matter and they will put all their resources to try and resolve this conflict as soon as possible. Well, in other words, that our associate editor had also put it is that when it comes to development, if people follow responsible development, I think there would be development in both the human aspect and also animal aspect, in which this conflict could reduce by a very high number. Well, that was all for today's newsroom. For more newsrooms like this, keep watching Hornbill TV. Goodbye.